I'll call it to order at 7 p.m. Are there any changes to the agenda from anyone? Hearing none.
Tammy, we did have one, Tammy, if you recall.
Oh.
We had a request from the board to look at, I'm sorry, bear with me, our committee descriptions for the board, and to talk through those a little bit and see if we would have approval so that we can post those on the website.
Yes, and thank you for reminding me of that, because I told you I'd forget. So why don't we put that in as number 9, right at the beginning of committee business? That seems like that would work before we go to committee reports. Is everyone good with that? Okay. All right. So I need a motion to approve the minutes from August 5th, please.
I'll motion that. It's Adrian.
Thank you, Adrian. Is there a second?
I'll
Len?
second.
Thank you, Len. Are there any changes to the agenda, to the minutes? Any corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please give me a thumbs up. Okay. Anyone opposed, please say nay. Okay. Hearing none. The minutes are
One
approved.
abstention.
And George will abstain. Thank you, George. And we'll move on to public input and announcements. Before we start, I just want to say that you may have noticed that the warning had a cutoff for public comment today at 3 o'clock. That's due to vacation schedules of the administrative staff. And we are kind of working a little hobbled tonight because of that, because Anna's not with us. So that is the reason for that. And I apologize to anyone who did not sign up, but we have to follow the procedures that we set in place for everybody. So going along that lines, I believe we have 5 people signed up to speak. Is that correct, Dave? And can you tell us who they are?
Yes, that is correct, Tammy. So the folks that connected with the office and signed up to speak in order, and I'll call names as we go through. We have Patty Heather Lee, who I believe is with us by phone, followed by Fran Putnam, who's with us on video. Sally Lincoln, I don't see evidence of yet, but we'll keep an eye for her. Dory Overable is with us on video, and Michael Schenk, I don't see evidence of, but we'll keep an eye for him as well. So I turn it over to you. Patty Heather Lee would be our first by phone, Tammy.
Okay, and just before we start with Patty, I just want to reiterate that everyone's going to have 2 minutes to talk tonight. I'll keep track of the time. When you have 30 seconds left, I will interrupt you and just let you know that so that you have an idea to wrap up your comments. Ask everyone to just observe the rules that are on the agenda. Please give us your full name. Tell us where you're calling from or appearing from, so we have an idea of where you are. We will just ask you to not repeat what's already been said. And the board is not, this is not a discussion. It's our opportunity to hear you voice comments, suggestions, concerns, questions, and hearing that. And you can't give your time to anyone else. So I think I've hit all the high points of that. Please have Patty first. Is that correct, Dave? I have that name. So
That's
Patty.
correct. We got Patty by phone.
Patty, are you with us?
Yes.
Hi, Patty. How are you? Good evening.
Good.
Can you just tell us where you're calling from?
Yes, I'm calling from Bristol, Vermont.
Okay, Patty. I'll start the timer and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left. Go ahead.
Okay, first, it's 2 minutes, right? First, thank you for your work. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Hello, my name is Patty Hatherley. I'm a retired public school math teacher. I taught in Vermont for over 30 years. In the Mill River Union High School's mission statement, it is stated what is valued. We value responsible, kind, and engaged citizenship. It is also stated who you are. We are a proud public school community preparing all students for the opportunities and challenges that life presents. In your foundational beliefs, you state, all students feel respected, cared for, and loved. All learners have voice and choice in their pursuit of personal growth. Educators believe in and model learning as a lifelong process. The entire community benefits from the strengths of its students, staff, and schools. Thank you for having these guiding words in place. I strongly urge you to act as a community which reflects and realizes you are connected to our larger society, our state, and our nation. Be a strong model, willing to stand up and express your values. Student voices need to be listened to. Yes, Black lives do matter. Yes, all students need to know they are valued no matter what sexual orientation they choose to express. Fly the Black Lives Matter flag, fly the Pride flag. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you for your comments. Dave, who is next?
Next, we have Fran Putnam by video, and then Sally Lincoln is after that, but I don't see Sally yet. So if Sally is not here, we will move on to Jess Venable Novak after Fran. So Fran, you're up.
Hi,
Thank you. Hi.
Go ahead. I'll start the timer.
Okay, my name is Fran Putnam. I'm calling from Weybridge, Vermont, and I'm proud to be a member of the Rutland chapter of the NAACP. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Here's my statement. The revered civil rights leader, Representative John Lewis, had this to say about injustice. If you see something, say something. I'm here to say something. I applaud the Mill River School Board for your agreement to fly the Black Lives Matter flag at Mill River High School. That flag is a symbol to remind us about the work we all need to do to repair the harm that centuries of racism have done. It is a reminder to pay attention to how and what we teach students, not only at Mill River, but at every high school in Vermont. It is a reminder that we need to welcome every Black member of the school community, students, staff, faculty, and families, so that we never again relegate their lives and their stories to the shadows.
Exactly.
Any attempt to remove this flag is a step backwards in our efforts to stand with the Black community. Flying this flag is only a first step, but it is an important step, and it can remind all who see it to be a better community now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran.
So I'd like to just pause and see if Sally is with us. Sally, are you there hiding anywhere that I can't see you by chance?
Sally? No?
With that, we move on to, I believe it's Dory. So Dory, you're up.
Hi, Dory.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. I'll start the
All right.
timer. Go ahead.
Thank you. So my name is Dory Venable Novak. My partner and I live in Clarendon with our daughter, who is going into second grade at Clarendon Elementary. I moved to the Mill River School District in 2007. Over the weekend, I was made aware of Art Peterson's plans to advise residents to vote against the school budget if Mill River Unified School District continues with the plans to raise the Black Lives Matter and Pride flags. Our family is disgusted that someone running for public office would weaponize the school budget. The school budget, as you know, is not funding the raising of the flags. As an LGBTQ family living in this district, we not only don't feel represented by Art Peterson, we feel directly harmed by the things he has said. Most importantly, as parents, we believe it is our duty to care for not only our child, but for all children. We wholeheartedly oppose Art Peterson's assault on our children in the community. And we appreciate everything you're doing to raise these flags. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dory.
Next, we have Michael Schenk, who I believe is with us by video.
Michael, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can. Are you ready to start? I'll start the timer.
I am. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I've turned off my video because my bandwidth in Brandon isn't great this evening. So hopefully you can hear me. If you can't, just let me know. I'm a teacher. I'm a professor of graduate students. And I know, as any other teacher on this call knows, that we have to create a safe space for students. And we also have to make sure that students feel represented. And your leadership in setting the bar for other school districts throughout this state, I applaud. I support you raising those flags, the Black Lives Matter flags, the Pride flags, so that students know loud and clear that your school is a safe space for them and that they feel represented at your school. So thank you for your leadership. I hope you stick to your leadership. And I hope that other school districts in the state of Vermont see your leadership and do the same and create a safe space for all students. Thank you so much for letting us speak. Appreciate your time this evening. That's it.
Thank you, Michael.
And Tammy, I believe Sally Lincoln has joined us by phone. Sally would be our final speaker, if indeed that is you. Sally, are you out there?
I'm here. Thank you. This is Sally. Sorry, I was figuring out phone things and
No
all
problem.
that. So okay.
Are you ready to start, Sally? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from, excuse me, North Ferrisburg.
Okay, go ahead. I'll start the timer. Thank you.
Okay. So my name is Sally Lincoln, and I am a new member of the NAACP in Vermont, and I actually learned that there's only one chapter in Vermont. It's based in Rutland, and I actually learned the second largest in New England, next to Boston, which was impressive to me to think that it's a popular organization to be able to help support Black lives. And I am a teacher at an independent school. I'm a preschool teacher, and we have non-gender bathrooms. We talk about race, and I applaud a public school that has already voted on having the Black Lives Matter flag and the Pride flag be flown. And the fact that there are people calling in your community. I'm not in your community. I'm a community human, and there are people in your community. I'm hearing their voices, and it just baffles me that this would even be a question. If it was decided, and now it's sort of like white fragility is coming to bear. And I had my Black Lives Matter sign stolen the other day, and it's just sort of the it's all going to come to a head, and I implore you to stay strong. And
left. Sorry.
Okay. And so thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing other people's views. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Sally.
Yep. Bye.
Everyone, Dave? That was our list.
Yes, that's the extent of our public comment list.
Okay, I would ask the public who are on the meeting by video or phone, if you could now disconnect, and we'd encourage you to watch the rest of the meeting on the YouTube link. That's YouTube, right? The YouTube live stream link.
Correct.
We're going to move on with the rest of our meeting. And I thank you all for taking the time to call tonight. And I would encourage anyone who didn't have the opportunity to speak tonight to call and get on the list to be on our next meeting, because we would like to hear from you. Thank you. So we'll move on to central office reports. So Dave, that would be you.
Yes, please bear with me one moment.
No problem.
My multitasking skills are sometimes better than others. In terms of my report, the board has received my written report, and essentially tonight, what's most important to me is that you hear from the rest of our folks. You hear from Andrew on a curriculum perspective, from Coral on a special ed perspective, and from our building principals in terms of the nitty gritty of what's going on in the buildings to prep for the start of school. I hope you'll be pleased with all the information that you received tonight. I do think that tonight's public comment is telling. It obviously comes from widespread areas, but compelling comment from within our district as well. And I do have certain interest and concern for how any public efforts to scuttle the budgeting process and the approval of the budget, that's obviously very concerning for us as a school district. In really simple terms, this board, I can speak proudly as a person who works for you. This board is very conservative in how it spends and chooses to spend dollars, and pays a lot of attention to its taxpayers and impact of board decisions on taxpayers from a budget standpoint. So our reality when we get to budget building and budget approval is reductions tend to result in reduced jobs for local taxpayers and reduced programs for kids. That's our simple reality. We're in a challenging place as a society right now, and it's just worth us being aware of that. To forecast budget building, most of you know this already, but it's worth discussing it publicly. Liz Filskoff and I will probably be getting together sometime in late September, early October, and doing some strategizing on the finance side to prepare for entering into our finance conversations with Liz as the chair of the finance committee. During October, November, December, that's when we're really hammering out what we think a budget should potentially look like at the district level. We bring those to the board, best case in mid-December, worst case in mid-January. And as you know, we've got some timelines that we have to meet where we've got to have a budget approved by mid-January or so at the board level in order to get it warned for town meeting. So it's a process you're familiar with, but it is worth talking about the coming work ahead of us. And this FY22 budget building will be without question the most challenging experience that I've seen in my now starting my 7th year as superintendent here. And I suspect it'll be the most challenging that any of our board members have seen as well. So a lot of work ahead, but we'll do good work on behalf of our kids. That's all I have for you.
Great, thank you. So Brian, do you have a report for us? Brian?
Yes, a lot
Hey,
of details in my report for tonight. A lot of things that we're doing that feel like similar things this time of year, getting ready to get back. I shared with the leadership team this morning that a nice little feeling of excitement is creeping in amidst all of the hard work and the stress and trying to figure out details. So it's nice for that excitement to get back to helping kids is there. Does anybody have any questions about anything that was in my report? What we're doing, prepping for next week in service and September 8th, going online with virtual learning?
Any questions? Andy? Sorry, I was looking down.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Okay. Hi, Brian.
Hey,
yes, that question, several questions. You referenced the online platform for reading and math instruction for grades 3 through 6. What is that platform? Could you give me some more information on that briefly? Please.
Absolutely, yes. The name of the product is Freckle, and that's something that a handful of our folks were trying out in the spring and seeing how it was working. The nice piece of that is that it connects with our assessment software, and it will line students up where the assessment shows they need support. So I think it'll be a valuable tool for our folks to do a little more individualized virtual learning.
Great.
Sounds good. Two more. How many families do not have reliable internet access?
So that question has a couple of different answers because I think there are actually a couple of more specific questions in there. So we can talk about one thing, which is availability of broadband. And when we looked in the spring at information that the Department of Public Service was putting forward, we had lists of addresses in the districts that did not have broadband available. So we cross-referenced that with addresses we have in our system on file for students. We could not identify students that didn't, homes of students that did not have access available. So that's one question, availability. So can you call up a provider and you can get some sort of service from a DSL line, moving up to a cable line or a fiber line? We're actually pretty lucky in our district. I spent a lot of time scrolling around maps and looking. We've got a really good fiber connection, Wallingford, VTEL, and Tinmouth going up there too, and a pretty good cable offering around our district. So second question is, okay, but do all of our families subscribe to a service? And that's not always the case. We have some families absolutely who are really relying on cell coverage as a way to provide internet access at home. We have some folks who for whatever reason, whether it's a philosophical reason of not wanting internet in the house 24/7, or it's a cost question of can we really afford it? We definitely have some folks who do not have broadband access at home. We have a small population that, really I'd say about a 1, 2, 3% population that just have no access whatsoever. And what we try to do is work with them to figure out, so what can we do? And really about the only thing we can do if we can't pair a family with a provider, we can start looking at cell coverage, and we can start looking at internet hotspots that are going to use that cell service. Not ideal, because cell service is not the best thing in the world to be using for virtual learning. But
Right.
when we start going down the list, the families that really have the high needs are going to be the ones that the best we could get them is cell internet, if they're in cell range.
All right. So we still have some that don't have it. That's good information.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Finally, I read with joy your quick report on technology being prepared, ready to go as of the opening of school. It reminded me back years ago, and every late August and September, we would cringe and wait to hear the bad news. So thank you, and thanks to the staff who did all the hard work this summer to make it another beginning of school. Technology successful.
Absolutely.
Huge.
Ken and Chris are great guys, and we're going to have some fires to put out when we start, but we'll get those fires out, because Ken and Chris are great guys, and we've got a good team. I appreciate that, Andy.
Great. Thank you.
Did anyone else have any questions for Brian? Vita, did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna actually more follow up on Andrew's. Have you had anything where the childcare facilities don't have internet access? Because I know since we are remote and people are sending their children out of town in some instances.
Yeah, that's a great question. That has not come up at all. That's not even something I had been thinking about, but that's not something we had heard from anybody.
Okay, I would hope there would be. I figured along the same lines of dealing with things individually, but that was one of my concerns.
Sure, and I wonder too if childcare providers are supporting educational efforts, or if they're really focusing just on childcare pieces, and there's not time and space. I don't know.
I'm thinking more.
We can deal with those when we hear them.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of they're going to grandparents' house, and grandparent is in Fairhaven or Pulteney type of a deal. So even some of those solutions.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear if folks are making some last minute housing changes.
Yeah. Okay, that was just a thought I had.
Okay. George, did you have a question?
I'd like to just follow up on Andy's compliment to Brian with one of my own. Andy and I both were in the days when we had our own in-house IT. And as Andy said, we dreaded each fall with the plethora of problems that would surface. So good job, Brian.
We do what we can. I appreciate that, George. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Any other comments or questions for Brian? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Brian.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. I know we have Andrew next, and I just want to say that I know Andrew's going to also go into a little bit more detail later on, right, Dave, when we go into more of our reopening. So
yeah, that's correct. So you could probably pass over Andrew for now, because he'll be able to do his report a little bit later.
Okay, that sounds good. And then we'll move on. Coral, where are you? There you are. I'm trying to find people on my screen. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Hi, everyone. I kept my report short and sweet and to the point, but we are making very good progress in terms of setting up special ed operations for the students that will be receiving their in-person special services. We have chosen Mill River as the location for that, for all of our kiddos who will be coming in. And I ran a final child count just prior to this meeting. So I'm pleased to report we'll have a total of 66 students coming in to see us pretty much every day for some amount of services. So we are generally scheduling kiddos in waves of about 3 hours of time. So in general, not in all cases, but in general, we're able to offer students about 3 hours of services per day. Staffing has been a bit of a challenge and will continue to be a bit of a challenge, particularly at the middle and high school level. We are quite a bit understaffed in that area, but we are really trying to work hard to overcome that with as little impact to the services or to the kids as possible. So it's coming along. So questions?
Any questions? Len, go ahead.
Just a quick question. In terms of the transportation, are the parents going to be responsible for getting the students to Mill River?
So it depends on whether the child is an in-district child or an out-of-district child. So students who are with us on school choice are not necessarily eligible for transportation. Kids that do live in our boundaries are. We do have a handful of parents, though, that were like, I'd rather just transport them myself. So we kind of have a mix of things. I don't have a count on the number of kids getting transportation. I'm going to say like 25-ish or so. I could be off a little bit, but.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Coral? No? Okay, thank you, Coral. Gary.
So Tammy, we have Gary on vacation this week, a much deserved vacation. Although he told us in our leadership team meeting today, I think he's got 10 adults and children visiting his home right now. So he might prefer to be with us if we wanted to offer that up to him. But he just asked if anyone had any questions to reach out to him directly via email. He'd be happy to respond to those.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. So Carrie, we'll move on to you. How are you?
Good. How are you? How is everyone? I haven't seen some of you for a while, but it's nice to be here. So within my report, there are two different areas of that report. One was the summary of our summer program, which is technically wrapping up this week. We were innovative this year, but we were still very persistent with doing the best we could to serve families and kids, which is our goal. Those three programs, again, that are summarized were some remote workshops that we did, allowing students the opportunity to do instrumental music lessons. There was a wonderful career awareness and readiness program that Debbie Singheiser and Renee Beaupre-White did that children benefited from. And that was one of the offerings. We had tutoring support. We had 9 teachers that offered a total of 170 personalized hours. And that was for around 30 children who are our most struggling learners, one-to-one. That was very successful. Several of the students actually gained full grade levels, and a few of them a couple of grade levels in math and literacy. And we distributed, I should say the site directors of After School distributed over 300 personalized bags that were filled with arts and crafts supplies, healthy snacks, some summer toys, art materials, and the families were really happy to actually receive that. We just saw that as something we could, one of the few things we were able to do, you know, in light of COVID, and yet they're very appreciative. We were very innovative about the distribution means. The second piece of the report was very exciting. This is a new program we're going to be offering in September and October. And actually it's consistent with our goal in After School of being able to be responsive to needs that families and students have. 2 of those needs that we're hearing are being able to navigate, particularly for the younger children, navigate some of the remote learning technologies and also work on their curriculum or their academic needs. The second need that we're hearing is for more social emotional support and counseling support. So we're actually going to be inviting, this is just getting rolled out this week. Principals at the elementary schools are sending information home today and tomorrow on this, and it will be advertised. We're inviting 20 students that will be in 2 different pods of 10 into Clarendon and into Wallingford Elementary School during the 7 weeks. We're offering 8 hours and 2-hour increments of supports during that time. All of our procedures will be done in a completely safe way. We're working closely with Beth Younce on that, making sure everyone's trained and that our protocols are, again, completely in order. Again, with the 2 primary goals of that, that'll all be teacher run. Cheryl Maneri will be directing the Wallingford site. Tracy Tinsley will be overseeing Clarendon. And we're very excited about that opportunity to be able to bring some of the students back and into school and again, kind of, you know, iron out a few of the wrinkles maybe with some of these kids, particularly those that struggle that would otherwise we'd maybe be seeing a little bit later in the year when we come back to school. And so again, that information is just going out this week. There's no charge at all for this program to any of the families that will participate.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions, Carrie?
Oh,
Adrian.
I was just curious, Carrie, what size groups are you running in the after school program?
We will have 2 groups of 10 students.
That
at
are all
each
together
school.
in the same group, the 10 students?
Yeah, there'll be 10 in a group, 10 in 2 separate groups, so 20 at each school, so 40 total a week over 7 weeks. So technically, 280 spots, which will probably end up, we're thinking if our goal is really to be able to serve at least 100 students, 100 to 120 students.
That's
with
great.
the program.
Thanks for
Yeah.
putting that together.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Carrie? Okay, hearing none, thank you. So Stan, we'll move on to you.
Oops. Good evening. I sent you a report, just a summary of the general fund and our lunch program. These numbers still aren't final. We're still waiting for a couple of things from AOE to finalize things. They actually extended our due date for our final year-end report, which is usually August 15th to September 15th, so that they can get all the information to us before, so that we can actually finalize this. So they had to extend that date. But these numbers will be pretty close to where we're going to end up. We ended up with an unanticipated surplus of about $721,000, and that can be directly related to, our expenditures, savings in buildings and grounds, and transportation, and those types of items, reducing our expenses for the whole year. With that unanticipated surplus, it would bring our fund balance starting this FY21 year to a little over $1.5 million. And that sets us up fine for this year. We applied $600,000 of our fund balance to reduce this year's taxes, and we will have $200,000 to transfer to the building sinking fund. I also threw in $150,000 for returning tuition to our sending districts. Because of our expenses being down, our allowable tuition rate will probably be down for FY20, which means we'll have to return some of the money we collected from the districts back to them for this upcoming year. I am estimating on the high side of that being around $150,000 right now. And what that brings us for FY22, going into FY22, would be a fund balance of around $600,000. And with our lunch program, being completed, our lunch program being ended in mid-March, and us doing the summer program from March to June 30th, we actually weren't hurt by that. Our expenses were quite low, and we actually ended up with a profit for the year. And that profit's probably is going to be around $18,000, and that does not account for about a $6,700 reimbursement from CRF funds that I put in the other day. So that number will actually probably increase. But overall, the lunch program survived this FY20 COVID shutdown. With our the only upcoming thing we have coming up is our annual audit. That's going to be the week of September 21st. They will try to do that remotely as much as they can. If there are any major issues, which we hope there won't be, then they probably won't have to actually physically show up at our building. And that's my report. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to hear from our principals, which would be nice. So why don't we start? I wrote them down, so I'm going to do it in that order just so that I don't miss anybody, since it's hard to see everybody. So Jody, why don't you go first?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So our teachers always work over the summer, even though, they're home. But I would say that this summer they've worked harder than ever before. We've been meeting regularly as a faculty, even as they've been on summer vacation. And everybody's working hard right now to set up ways that they can meet either families or their entire homerooms in person, outside, safely, before the beginning of the school year, because we feel it's important that kiddos can just at least see their face with a mask on from 6 feet away outdoors, just to connect to that teacher as best as they can. So we're hoping to get some of that specific information out to families in the next week. Computer survey for any family at Shrewsbury who wants to borrow a school computer has already gone out, and we've gotten about a third of the school has already replied. So we're working hard to get all of that up and ready. The first few weeks we have planned really to just focus on social emotional support, on getting to know kiddos, on checking in with them, on getting to know their needs. We are then planning to go into assessment so that every teacher can use their time flexibly to meet individually or in small groups with kids to really start to figure out where they are with their skills. And then we will work to then shuffle our online live learning into small groups based on making sure that every kid is getting the needs getting all of their needs met. So we're going forward with a plan for increased synchronous, which means live online instruction in groups that make sense according to kids' skill levels with their homeroom teachers. I'm so proud of how hard the staff is working on this. They're being so flexible, and they're continuing to work to make it work. We're going to be offering in the week before school, in a typical year, we would offer an informal meet and greet with the new staff at Shrewsbury Mountain School. We're going to be offering that in the evening live on Zoom this year. So any parent who does want to stop by and just see the new to Shrewsbury faces will be able to. And another important part of the first day of school is kiddos showing off the 2 inches they grew or their new sparkly sneakers. And so this year, we're going to be asking families if they'd like to take a picture of their kids on their first day of school and send it in. And we'll be making a slideshow for our social media account, just so that we can celebrate the first day of school collectively together, because even if we can't be together in person, we're still a family, we are still a whole school, and we're still excited to see each other. So I'd encourage you to check that out. Continuing on with our farm to school work and sustainability work, we are working with Sage on our community compost project, on our garden upgrade, and on continuing Sage farm to school lessons even remotely.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Jody? Okay. Thank you. Maureen, you're next on my list. How are you? You're muted. We can't hear you.
I got to tell you, Jody's a pretty hard act to follow, so bear with me. We're pretty much in the same category. We're a small school, and one of the advantages that we have is that our teachers are looping with all their kids that they had last year. So that's really a strong advantage for us. In addition to that, the teachers have also been working for the last month designing programs, and programs that are interactive, more interactive than they were in the spring, and less computer time overall, and more hands-on activities sort of assignments. So they've been pulling that together along with a schedule that includes live lessons 4 days a week, 2 days a week of office hours for kids to check in and get feedback and get remediation. They're setting up the one-on-one, but they have to contact the families, the one-on-one for guided reading and things like that. So it's very similar to what Jody's team is doing as well. We sent out surveys for computer use, availability, and how well their internet worked, and what kind of equipment needs there were. And we got about a 50% return so far. We're still counting. And we're able to address some of the needs of the families as far as internet goes. Brian and I have been working on that. In addition to that, we're doing orientation virtually the first week, and the teachers are sending out letters to the families as well. One thing that I've been emphasizing in talking to my community, because I send out letters now, even though it's August, And that is that this is really a great opportunity, this COVID-19 at-home learning, because it really puts front and center our habits of work. And our habits of work are going to be critical for the success. I mean, we could have the best programs in the world and the best teachers in the world, but if the kids aren't pulling their weight as far as following through and persevering, and those kind of character traits that we have emphasized over the last few years, you know, that's going to make a difference on how successful we are as well. And I've been giving talking points like that to families to help kids to really rise to the occasion, because this is a great opportunity to learn those skills. And those are life skills that they're going to, it's just as important as the academic skills that they're learning. It's something that's going to serve them well into the future. So enough said. We're ready to go and real excited about starting in September. So thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Anyone have any questions for Maureen? Okay, thank you. Fred, we're going to go to you next. How are things in Clarendon shaping up?
Fantastic. Things are looking really good here. I ditto the staff working hard all summer. We called impromptu meetings and have nearly full attendance. When I talked to them, they said, oh, we've already met and we're already collaborating. So they're doing a lot of stuff already together. They're excited to go. You know, obviously with us not being able to close down last year, we too said, okay, well, what will the kids need? Obviously social and emotional is a big thing. And Paul has been doing tons of research over the summer, trying to pull stuff together. She's working with the teachers to have, you know, like a checklist or a monitoring device for us to keep an eye on the kids and what they're going through. And you know, passing some of that along to the parents to say, please keep an eye on it at home and let us know. So we're working on that, but we're also looping. Even with a larger school, we said, okay, well, how can we do this? We can't loop with all of the kids because, you know, it just didn't work out that way. But where we could, teachers looped so that they could have some, you know, closure with kids, but also so that the kids would be comfortable with who they knew. Where we couldn't loop, we took the paras who had been working with those classes and moved those up with the new teachers so that they had an opportunity to be familiar with you know, adults that they were working with. So I know that's going to work out really well. We're also going to try to do some live in-person meet and greets before the school starts, but we're going to have to probably split up our classes so that we can do it without yelling 100 yards away. To keep everybody safe at a physical distance. And the flexible learning modulars that we're putting out there really fits with our project-based learning. And we've been kind of in that mode. So that it's really exciting for us to be doing that from, you know, 6 to K to 6, all the way through, you know, gives us guidance. And the teachers are excited about setting up schedules, which they've already begun to do with families. So we'll have a set schedule in there, and they've also agreed to do after hours, office hours, so that we can accommodate for parents and families that are working. So we're excited to go. I'm excited to see what they're going to bring to the table come September Tuesday, whatever that day is.
Great. Thank you, Fred. Any questions for Fred?
Yes, I do.
Oh, go ahead, Doug.
Fred, what days are you in the office? There's a plaque out on one of the stones that has come apart. I'd like to put that back together before it gets too cold.
Okay, I'll be there Monday. If Monday's a good day for you, I can meet you there, or any day next week.
Okay, we'll try for Monday then. I'll stop then.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And now we're going to move on and welcome Dan, first time giving a principal report from Wallingford. Welcome to our group, and let's hear what's going on in Wallingford.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to share. I know the unfortunate events led to canceling my travel plans back in March when I thought I was going to be able to meet with the whole staff and the families and the students and the community. So here we go now. At least I get to somewhat have an interaction, and we'll do some Q&As later for families as we find it appropriate in the best setting. But I do want to give a shout out to my staff. kind of piggybacking on the other principals, I really can't believe the dedication that they have. Just being able to meet over the summer, I feel bad every time I reach out to them. I try to respect people's personal time off and their weekends, but it seems like they're waiting for an email and they respond right away. They jump at the opportunity to meet. So we've been having staff meetings. We've been having separate department meetings, and they've been great. They're positive. They are reflective, and I'll kind of speak to that, how it's kind of guiding our work moving forward. So in some of these meetings, we've been talking about, what worked best last spring when we were kind of thrown into the emergency online situation, and most of them were saying that keeping that daily communication and contact with them was very important to maintain engagement. So what we're doing is having the morning meetings daily, and we'll be focusing highly on the social emotional learning aspect. The thing that we all agree on is that we need to make sure that we've got the kids engaging with us in a positive way, and once we can see that they're okay there emotionally, that's when they'll get more engaged academically. So that's definitely going to be our focus moving forward. Some of the ways our teachers are going to be doing that is they will be offering one-on-one meetings with families. And we initially thought we could do that weekly, but it's looking like that may be weekly in some cases and bi-weekly in others. But it's really going to be a golden opportunity for the teachers to touch base with students and their families on a one-on-one basis, learning their needs, answering any questions, but really building that relationship that's just crucial. And we know that we're going to reap the benefits when we do return in person. So we're taking advantage of that. It's interesting going remote that some people are negative, and I feel like my staff is really looking at all the positive ways that we can take advantage of it. And so that's one of them. They are offering office hours, because the emails I'm fielding from parents, and I totally understand, is just being available on a daily basis in the time slots that we have scheduled. And so when something comes up and they have to miss for whatever situation arises, there will be some opportunity to interact with teachers later on in the afternoon and the evening, at least a day or two a week. And there's going to be pre-recorded sessions. There's going to be links to introductions on certain topics. So if for some weird reason they miss, they don't need to stress about it. They'll be able to communicate that with a teacher, but then also be able to access, portions of instruction that were, crucial for opening a new module and whatnot. We are holding a meet and greet. We're going to do that September 3rd and 4th, that Thursday and Friday before school actually starts. We talked about it. We went back and forth, and it seemed that everyone's weigh in on it leans towards, let's do this in person so we can actually be together, see each other. But we're definitely doing some interesting scheduling so we can stagger the people, keep the numbers down. So we have short grade level spans that are meeting, and we're going to offer an evening session for half of the people, and then in a morning session for the other half. So we're splitting each grade level into two groups. So only half of the grade level will be meeting with the teacher at a given time. And that'll be the opportunity for kids to pick up Chromebooks, any welcome back packets that they need, some supplies, and being able to update some of their contact information if needed. One of the other things that we talked about, and that we will obviously be doing moving forward, as everyone else I assure, is just future staff meetings and being real, talking about what's working and what's not. So just looking forward to touching base regularly with the teachers, finding out their successes, sharing those with the team, and then finding out what's not working and trying to dig from other teachers on what are they doing differently that is helping. So that's great. We are working with the after school program, which is fantastic. They're going to be able to provide at Wallingford in our gym a couple hours Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday each week for different groups for students to come in and actually get some extra additional support along with academic support. So that's going to be awesome. We too are taking advantage of our paras. So as the teachers discover what students' individual needs are and cluster some of them together that are similar, the teachers will be able to run small group instruction, and our paras will also be able to meet with kids in small groups. So, you know, we're really trying to wrap around as much support as we possibly can in this time, and we're looking forward to it. I know a lot of people are aware that Wallingford is no different than anywhere else, and every year there's got to be staffing needs. So I'm excited. We hired an awesome third grade teacher, Tara. She comes with some experience actually working at Wallingford and in the community. She loves the outdoors, so we're excited about what she's going to bring to the class. We have a pre-K teacher that's on the list for the board to review for approval tonight. And the background experience that is brought with this individual is phenomenal, and every review is just glowing, and we're excited about that. The 5th grade position that's open is already posted. We're throwing that on live social media. It's in School Spring, and I'm already getting reached out from several people inquiring about the position. And so I have no doubts that we're going to get the right person in that spot. We're just, on crunch time, so it's just an interesting time to be looking, but we've already got the feelers out, and I'm actually really excited to be able to hire. And to throw, another shout out to my staff. I've been calling on staff to participate in these interviews. So the staff who are directly working with the individuals we're hiring are a part of the hiring panel. And they have been professional. They've been fully engaged. We've been taking turns asking the candidates questions, and it's been really crucial getting their input on, the final say on who we're going to be selecting for the position. So we know that these people are not going to be just good for the students, but they're going to be great for the team, and we know how important that is moving forward, just to be a whole family unit. I'm excited to be there to see the families as they come for the meet and greets. I know some families might not be able to make it or choose not to, and we respect that just for safety and health reasons. But I really look forward to engaging with them. The community, I know in the Wallingford Rotary, members were already offering their services for, do some of these kids need extra tutoring? And so I know Dave's been fast at work figuring out the ins and outs so we can do that safely. And so it's just neat to see the way the community's pulling together to help support everyone in this time. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Dan?
That was a lot, I know.
Well, thank you. And that's great. Now we'll move on to the high school. So Tyler, you were there and now you're gone on my screen. I know you're there somewhere.
I'm still here.
Oh, there you are.
Good? Okay, good. Okay. I want to echo what everyone else has said. Our summer has been probably the most productive summer I've had at Mill River. It's the amount of collaboration we've had with teachers and their willingness to work and meet with Jen and I and just really get down and dirty, if you will, and really figure out what we're going to do. I have really 2 themes for this year, and that's consistent expectations and consistent and frequent communication. What that means is that we know where we need to pick up the pace. We know where we need to pick up some areas from last spring. And when I say consistent expectations, we were all over the place last spring, and we know that, and we're fixing that. We have fixed that. Andrew's going to talk to you later about our learning module, Google Classroom setup, and all teachers are going to have a Google Classroom that is set up exactly the same. So when you go from Mr. Smith to Mr. Brown, you know exactly where to look for what information. I think that's going to be a really big thing for us because, when you face it, our kids have up to 8 classes that they are responsible for. That brings me to our schedule. Our schedule is looking at a healthy mix of synchronous and asynchronous instruction. So we're going to have, a really robust virtually in-person class schedule. And then also there's going to be plenty of time outside of class where kids will be working remotely by themselves and also in small groups set up by teachers. Our teachers are, like everyone else said, are going to be having office hours. So that kind of keys into that consistent and frequent communication piece. Our teachers are going to be on Wednesdays working with kids virtually in small groups, what have you. There are no assigned class periods on Wednesdays, but that is going to be time for kids to be working and engaging the material that they are responsible for. Another thing that is big on what we're moving into this year is something that I want Jen to highlight here in a little bit, and Jen's on the call as well, is that we know that we have a lot of kids out there that are going to struggle with this. And we know we're going to have a lot of students who need our support. And that's where that social emotional piece really comes out and plays for us. And I want to talk about a couple more things that we're working on presently, but Jen's going to talk about our remediation process for our kids that needed help from last spring. And then also how we're going to help kids this fall in terms of the social emotional piece. And not just kids, families, because we know that the parents are a huge part of this, and we need to reach out to them and make sure they are taken care of and that they know that we are here for them. Real quick, things that we're still working on. We are still working on orientation pieces for our incoming 7th graders, because we have kids just like our pre-K and kindergartner kids coming into elementary schools have never been in the building before. And they've never met the teachers before. I mean, luckily, a lot of our 10th and 11th grade students know who the teachers are in the building, and they're somewhat comfortable with that. But we have a fair amount of kids, our 7th grade, they're coming into our building not knowing who their teachers are. So we're going to be working on a virtual orientation for them, and then also for our incoming pick kids to the high school, and really that's across the board for our Black River community as well. So those kids coming in there are brand new. We're working on that. We're also working on how we can get the necessary materials out to kids, and then we need to Chromebooks, textbooks, what have you. And another piece to that is, I'm sure Jen can talk to a little bit more about, but in terms of kids coming in the building to get the necessary materials, all of our kids' schedules right now are live, and this is the first time we've ever done this before. They're all live. They're all on Power School, and kids are able to access them and look at them. And also, we typically have this add drop period for every semester. It's usually the first 2 weeks of the semester. So kids, they can kind of get oriented to a class and say, maybe I want to try something else, or I like this class and I want to stay in it. That period is actually opening this coming Monday. So kids can look at now, granted, they're not in class yet, but they can look at their schedule and they can say, no, I want to change something, and make that change with their counselor in a virtual meeting to make the best schedule possible, so that is ready to go on day one. Our add drop period is going to continue for a week into normal instruction, or virtual instruction that first week of school, so that any changes can be made once those kids do access the classes. But that is something that is new for us this year, and I think it's going to be pretty seamless for us and really help us so that we can get going right away rather than lingering for another week out in school. So with that, before I take any questions, I want to turn it over to Jen, because she's got a lot to talk about and also with our social emotional connections.
Hi, everyone. So first we'll talk about the remediation from the past semester's incompletes. We kind of made an agreement with everyone that we wouldn't allow students, because of COVID-19, to take a failing grade, because we weren't sure what the factors were that led to that failing grade. So we have been meeting over the summer as a guidance team. Some people have been turning things in over the summer. We've made our Google Classrooms live throughout the summer, so kids could, over the summer, start turning things in. So we've been updating that list. We met with the guidance team, and then Stacy Fisk, who coordinates our EST and sports services, student services, and we said, let's put them on self-help if you had an incomplete, and they will work with Brian and Annette in order to remediate that. We recently met this week, and we looked at the data, we looked at all the students, and we said that one size fits all approach isn't about personalization, which Mill River is about. And so we're kind of looking at not just putting kids in self-help, but also, did you need more support than that? Do you need to have a lab? Do you need to have a class with an actual content teacher for remediation? So looking at more of an individualized approach to students than this like whole size, like this, you have an incomplete, so you're going into this. So we're trying to keep it focused on personalization. And then as far as guidance, We have our schedules live. Like Tyler said, we will be sending those out in a bulk mailing. The first day of school that kids are going to be, they're going to be an advisory because we want one teacher to be their point person for this time. And so they'll meet in that advisory on the first day with a group of kids. They'll go over our expectations, make sure kids have their join codes for Google Classroom, make sure they know their remote schedule, and then the kids will go through like a mini rotation. And then we're also expanding our guidance presence so that we will have office hours and guidance. There will always be someone in guidance available in the building. And we're offering that if you or your family want to meet with us, you can come to the building. We'll meet with you outside. Rain or shine, we have places around Mill River that we can meet with people if they need to meet with us. We also are going to roll out that your family, anyone that's 7 through 12 in our district, will be receiving a phone call from someone in the guidance team on a bi-weekly basis, and that's to reach out to students and to reach out to families if they need that. We did secure through VSAC their Gear Up grant again. And through that, we were going to be using some of those funds to boost up our college and career readiness and preparedness. And so we will have someone dedicated to touching base with seniors to make sure that they're on track and doing with it the things that they need to do, whether they're going to college or going into a career.
Great. One other quick thing before anyone jumps to questions. I forgot to say something about the consistent and frequent communication piece. Something Jen mentioned, our first day of school, September 8th, kids are going to be in their advisory pods. What we've asked all of our advisors to do is to prepare a letter, which is actually in process right now, and it's actually due this coming Friday, a letter home, snail mail home to all of our kids, not an email communication, not electronic communication, but some kind of written letter welcoming them to the building and welcome to Mill River. We thought that was a nice personal touch for our kids to have that. And that, like Jen said, those advisor teachers are going to be their point people for when they're virtual. And also when we do come back into school in person, that will be their advisor as well. So there's that constant communication and consistency. So if anyone has any questions, Jen and I'd be happy to answer some for you.
Any questions? Nope. Doesn't sound like it. Thank you. Thank you for all that information.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on then, and we will move on to our equity work update. So Jody, is that you?
Yes. Yeah. So when we last met together, the board asked me to do two things. The first one was to go back to the flag raising committee and ask the committee their thoughts and preferences on waiting until we can be in person to raise the flags or raising them while we are working remotely. And the second one was to work with the flag raising committee subset that is working on some curricular resources for our teachers and to come back with a little bit more detail about that. So in regard to the first question, it is the unanimous opinion of the flag committee that it is important to raise those flags as planned, the BLM flag in September and the Pride flag in October, because we do not know what our school year will look like. It pretends to be a very flexible school year, and we just feel it is important to raise them now. Kids will not be in the building when they are raised, but kids will be driving by our buildings. Kids will know based on class activities that the flags are raised. And so that important intent, the reason that the board has stated that they want to raise the flags to show support for our students from historically marginalized populations, that intent will still come through even if children are not in the building. So questions or comments about that piece first?
Any questions or comments? Don't see any.
I was just, I was wondering what kind of timing you're discussing, or if you haven't gotten that far yet, in terms of, you know, during the day, and if you're moving through the schools, that kind of thing.
So currently we're planning for the end of September for the BLM flag, really let school get open first, just, you know, because there's already a lot on teachers' plates. and early October for raising the pride flag. And so the thinking is that those raisings will be done within the school day. For safety's sake, it will only be a very small number of people. We will have some speeches by representatives from some stakeholder communities that we will videotape. And some students have volunteered to raise the flags at both the high school and the elementary schools, and we will videotape the raising of those flags and put that together in one video.
Excellent. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, second part.
Second part. So there is a subcommittee, which is mainly educators and those who do work around equity education, working together to create some teacher resources around the flag raising. I think most importantly to point out is the intentionality, the learning goals of those lessons are things that we have been teaching in our schools for many years and will continue to teach. So the main goals behind those lessons and resources are kids should be proud of their own differences, that every single student is special and that they should be proud, that we respect and honor all families and all family systems in our school communities and in our larger community, that racism and prejudice are bad for our community and make people feel bad. And that when we see somebody being hurt, we need to speak out, and we need to encourage children to both speak out when they feel comfortable and tell adults so that we can help. And so those are the things we're really focusing on in the resources that we are sending home. All of the resources that we are sending to the teachers will be tailored for appropriate developmental levels and level of understanding. Resources will come from sources like Sesame Street, The Today Show, The Rutland Herald, WCAX, Teaching Tolerance, and GLSEN. Though all of those resources we'll be sending to teachers will be bunched by level of K2, 3, 6, 7, 12. And those entire resource lists, when complete, will be sent over to Andrew for a final vetting as our curriculum director. So I'll take any questions about that.
Any questions on that?
I guess I'm the only one. I'll say thank you, Jody. That it looks like the entire group has done a tremendous amount of work. Thank you.
I would like to add my thanks as well. Good job.
Okay, and Andy, you had something to add.
There we go. Yes, I want to give also a thank you to Jody and the group for great work. But I also want to thank all the other principals who have spoken. I am very excited about the work that's gone in this summer and the positive and the enthusiasm. It's hard on this type of Google presentation to keep speaking up and wait to get your mic on, your mic off. So that's why I haven't made any comments, but I wanted all of you to know that I've heard great things this evening, and I'm very excited about the start of the year. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Andy. Anything else? Doug, did you have something to add? You're muted. No, I guess not. Okay. So thank you.
Sorry about that. Nothing at the moment. I have something in mind later on. I sort of changed my mind for what I was going to ask, but we'll talk about it in other legal business.
Okay. All right. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to echo Andy's comments. What we've heard from principals tonight has been fantastic, and principals did a good job of pointing this out. And this connects to the equity work, but also just the work going on at schools. Our teachers have been working their tails off this summer. You know, we all know the normal rhythm of school and the normal rhythm of summer, and this summer has been everything but normal. So when you hear our principals talking about willingness to get together for video meetings and to talk through things, you know that teachers work all summer to get ready for the school year anyway, but that has just been put on steroids the last few months, and it's really impressive and really exciting, the type of work that's occurring. We are entering into another period of some unknown, but we know that we're building on a really strong foundation with good folks with good hearts who are working hard, and that's really all we can ask of anyone. So I just want to express that publicly for the group and for our teacher community.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to add? Okay, then we will move on. If that wraps up our equity work update, we'll move on to our reopening update. So Dave, I'll turn over to you.
Yeah, so this is actually going to be the Andrew show this evening. The board had asked either 1 or 2 meetings ago just to get a good sense of the kind of instructional curricular approach that we will be utilizing. So Andrew has a presentation ready for you. Andrew, are you going to share your screen or do you need me to do anything?
Yeah, no, I'm going to talk for just a moment and then I'm going to share my screen.
Very good, thank you.
So I'll just good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. So the first thing is I'll just synthesize my board report really quick. So the focus recently has really been around kind of 2 things. One is pulling together the guidance for curriculum instruction for this upcoming year, which is what I'll elaborate on here more in a moment. And then the other piece is preparing for our in-service days that's coming up next week. So new teacher orientation, our opening day, and then our curriculum and instruction days, which also includes some equity work as well. So that has been the ongoing focus for the last several weeks, is just getting all of that squared away, making sure that we have appropriate trainings for teachers that are gonna prepare them for this year, such as making sure they understand how to use Google Classroom and another program called Seesaw, and how to make videos with programs like Screen2Castify, etc. And so we've been preparing all that stuff together. Many teachers have been engaged in professional development over the summer as well. Myself and a number of other folks put together several kind of module workshop things for teachers to kind of work on at their own pace over the course of the summer on social emotional learning, using our modules, using Google Classroom, and other topics. And so many teachers were engaged in that as well. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to present my screen and I'll show you the presentation. Just to note, I won't be able to see your faces, and so I'll go through the presentation, breeze through that, and then at the end I'll unshare my screen, and then that way I can see everyone and then I can field questions if you'd like. I'll also mention that this is a really kind of concise synthesis of all the stuff that we're doing, and I'd be more than happy to share all the documents that kind of back up the things I'll be talking about tonight. So later on tonight or anytime, just email me if you want to know more, and I'd be happy to share with you any of the documents that we have so far, or just to have a further conversation with you as well to provide further details. So just give me a moment while I pull up my presentation.
And while Andrew's doing that, just for the members of the board, on Friday of this week, you'll receive an email from me that I'm sending out to staff as well. It's the traditional welcome letter, agendas for the opening day in-services and trainings and the like. Most all of those meetings are virtual, although some are occurring in person. But board members, you are always welcome to join into any of those meetings. So once you get that email, take a look at what's there. Links are in there for anything online. Just please feel free to hop in or out of any of our activity. We'd love for you to see what we're working on to get things started.
And
Back
Dave,
to you.
can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir. We can see it.
All right, perfect. All right, then I will get started here. And some of the things I'll talk about, many of the principals have touched on, so I'll breeze through those sections so as not to repeat. So the first thing to mention is we've learned a ton from our experiences this past spring. And the first thing I really want to mention is, the terms distance learning or remote learning are utilized a lot, and I would not call what happened in the spring that. I would call that crisis teaching, and that's not only true for Mill River, but also for really anywhere, because this was just thrown at everyone and there was no time to figure it out. And it was really new for quite a few people. Online learning is not a new thing per se, but it's not kind of the MO for most schools with regards to how they operate. And so that was what we did in the spring is really not what we're moving forward into. So we've learned from that, and we've gathered valuable insights from multiple sources, including surveys that were sent out back in May. We provided surveys to students, to parents, and also to teachers, and we pulled together those surveys, which were mostly short and long answer type questions, and looked through those, pulled out themes, and tried to figure out what was working well and what was not working well. And so the big takeaway is that moving into the fall, that is not equal to what we were doing back in the spring. And so we've made a number of improvements. And one of the big ones that I'll be talking more about here in a moment is shared instructional practices. And we had some of that already, but probably one of the bigger problems from the spring is everyone was kind of doing their own thing, and there was a lack of consistency of coherence. And so moving into the fall, we're going to have a much increased level of consistency and coherence. One of the ways that we're going to be doing that is there's going to be 2 common platforms that we'll be using. For pre-K to 2, we're going to be using a program called Seesaw, which many teachers had already been using prior to the whole COVID thing. And then grades 3 through 12, all teachers will be using Google Classroom. Additionally, we're emphasizing really clear expectations so that there's no question with regards to what students are supposed to do. So that's going to be heavily emphasized at the building and classroom level. I'm going to talk more about this here in a moment, but we're trying to really balance the synchronous and asynchronous learning experiences. And as I was talking about just a minute ago, a lot more training with regards to the use of technology and really trying to cull down the sorts of tools that we're using. As you probably are aware, there's probably thousands of different programs, tools, etc. out there, and a lot of them are great, but having too many of those can be overwhelming for really everyone, parents and students alike. And so we're trying to really whittle that down and just focus on a few really key kind of technology tools. I want to go to this really quick, and you may not be able to read all these pieces clearly, and that's okay. This is a visual that I have shown before and can be accessed on our website. This is our instructional vision, and this is something that we've had now for a couple of years. It's changed its appearance a little bit, but the pieces within it have not changed since I've been here. And I think this is something that we always go back to, and I think it's important that we not deviate from this instructional vision, because this is really what is guiding everything that we do, and everything that I talk about today is really grounded in this instructional vision. And though the way that we're approaching curriculum instruction might look a little different kind of on the surface, underneath, it's still kind of the same stuff that we've been trying to move towards for a while now. This has already been brought up, but I just wanted to make clear the terms synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous, when we're talking about that, we mean real-time live meetings with Google Meet or Zoom type things where you're actually having a conversation. And that really is going to be utilized for new instruction where teachers, doing a lesson, there's, maybe small group or whole class conversations, things like that. Then there's the asynchronous side, and that is not live. That's more self-directed, where students are maybe watching teacher-created videos, engaging in online discussion boards, or doing readings or other sorts of assignments. And so the key here is that we really want to find a balance of this. We don't want, students just looking at their screens all day long, because that's not going to work. While at the same time, the problem that we had back in the spring, I would say, would be that we had maybe a little too much asynchronous, and our students don't necessarily have the self-direction and other transferable skills to really do that asynchronous well. And so I think Maureen brought it up, but this is a good opportunity for us to really focus on those habits of work and transferable skills to kind of build that student self-direction so that they can do that asynchronous element a little better. So we're just trying to find the balance between those two things. This has also been brought up multiple times, but our first priority really is the social emotional learning piece. And again, this is not something that we're just talking about at Mill River. This is everywhere. This is a huge issue. And so building relationships with students is going to be a really important first step. And so one of the ways that we'll be doing that is providing a survey to kind of gather some baseline information around some of the social emotional learning pieces, so that we have some information to operate from. And again, just emphasizing to teachers that it's going to be really important to set those clear expectations and routines so students know what to expect, and that it's really important to know their students, probably more so now than ever. A little side note, had the COVID thing started in, say, September or early October, I think we would have been in a lot worse place than we were. The fact that it happened in March when it did, the relationships were already formed. And so I think that was something that really helped us move through it better than we would have had it happened in the fall. And one other piece to mention is, even once we get back into the classrooms, the social emotional piece is going to be at the forefront for probably a while. three kind of overarching mindsets, if you will, that we'll be emphasizing is this idea of pedagogy over technology. And what I mean by that is, just having technology is not going to solve any problems. We can have a really cool tool, but it's good teaching that is what's going to move our students forward and support their academic achievement. The technology is a tool that's going to help with that, but at the end of the day, it's the pedagogy, it's the teaching that really is going to support our students. And so that we need the technology. The technology is critical, but that is not the thing that is going to move it forward. That's just one of the pieces. We're also going to have to really think about shrinking the curriculum, because there already is way too much to teach. And so we're going to have to really prioritize what it is that we teach. And this was something that we had already started talking about last year. And this is actually a huge problem, again, nationwide and as a state level conversation, is trying to make sure, like, what is it that's actually critical to teach and what are things that maybe we don't necessarily need to do. And then kind of with that is balancing skills and content. So these transferable skills that I've talked about and habits of work, we need to make sure that we provide those enough time in addition to the academic content knowledge. This is not something I made up. This is actually, I think, 20, maybe even 30 years old. But these guiding questions are going to be kind of how teachers really frame the work they do in their classrooms. So, and again, this touches on work that we've already been doing. And so this is not necessarily anything new, but just trying to have a simple way of looking at our instructional practices. So, what is it we expect our students to learn? Those are our learning targets. How will we know they're learning it? That's the utilization of formative assessments, which I'll talk about in a second. What do we do when they don't know it? And that's the remediation piece that Jen was talking about. And then if they do know it, then how are we going to support them with enrichment and kind of extending beyond proficiency levels? So those guiding questions are going to be really critical for teachers. And then in addition to that is the importance of formative assessments. And formative assessments, really what that is a check for understanding while students are still learning. And that an example might be a quiz, whereas a summative assessment is an actual evaluation of where students are at, say, the end of a unit. And that could be in the form of, say, a test, a research paper, a presentation, something like that. And the four main pieces there, and again, this is work that we are already doing, is making sure we have those clear learning goals and success criteria so students know what it is that they're aiming at, that we're making sure we're getting evidence of where students are at while they're still in the process. If we only know where they're at after they've taken the test, then that doesn't do us any good. We need to know where they're at while they're still learning. Making sure that we're giving that actionable feedback so students know how to improve while they're still in the learning process. And then also emphasizing self-assessment and reflection, which is something that does not happen enough, but we'll be emphasizing more this year. And that will also help with the self-direction element of things that I talked about previously. So this term has already been thrown out tonight by a couple of principals, I believe, is the flexible learning module. And so that's just what we're calling kind of our approach to curriculum and instruction. And just, what this is in a nutshell is it's a parent-student facing document. It's not always necessarily a document per se. It could be the information that is within Seesaw and Google Classroom, but the idea is that it's something that the parents and students are interacting with. So it needs to be palatable for them. And that it's focused on a small chunk of learning. So those learning targets that I was talking about, and those are connected with our district proficiencies. And that ultimately what this module is it includes multiple pieces. It includes practice. It includes such as homework, assignments, lectures, etc. It includes a check for understanding in the form of a formative assessment. And then after that, it includes remediation if necessary. And the key there is what we don't want is we don't want to continue marching forward and leaving students behind. And so after we finish a chunk of learning, we want to know where our students are. And if some of our students had fallen behind, then we need to provide them extra opportunities, extra practice to make sure that they have that information for when they get to that final evaluation, the summative assessment. And so it's really trying to package a week's worth of work and focusing in on just that piece. So students can focus on that. We can make sure that they get the stuff before we move on to the next piece. Oops, there we go. This just kind of gives you like a visual of this, of how it might work is, we have some various activities. So readings, videos, whatever the practice might be. Then we have the formative assessment, so that check-in. And then after that check-in, then we have the remediation or enrichment opportunities before we jump to the next module, which is going to be focused on one learning target or maybe multiple learning targets, ultimately leading up to a larger summative assessment. Sorry, it's going a little slow here. There we go. This is a screenshot from Google Classroom, if you're not familiar with it, but this is kind of how a module would look. So a teacher would upload by Sunday night all the things that the students will be doing for that week. And so without going into too much detail here, there would be kind of an overview directions document that would have also a short video created by the teacher that just kind of lays out, hey, here's what we're going to be doing this week. Here are some of the things you'll be doing. Here are some of the important dates, kind of an overview of the week. And then the readings that they'll be doing, discussion prompts, videos, the formative assessment, and then the remediation as well. So everything is kind of front loaded for students for that week. And it also has it'll have the due dates as well, as you can see over here. Many of the things will be due at the end of the week. Some of the things may need to be due earlier. And so I'll be honest, Google Classroom is a pretty good platform for doing this because you can really pull it all together in a really clean way that's very accessible for students and parents. And I just also want to mention that this module idea. So this was developed back in May. Myself, Deborah, Jody, and Jen, we worked together to kind of create kind of the first iteration of these modules, but this was not something we just kind of pulled out of the air. This idea of having these smaller chunk modules is based first off in a lot of recent research, but also in everything that I've been reading over the summer with regards to hybrid learning, online learning, etc. This really is kind of the overarching process for how to do it, because it really allows students to zoom in on a chunk of learning and not be distracted by too many other things. So it really does help students with focusing in on what it is that they need to be learning. And then this is just kind of review as well, is there's going to be office hours, consistent schedules, the utilization of teacher-created videos to complement written pieces, just kind of ongoing dialogue through Google Classroom. So even when their students aren't engaged with the teacher face-to-face, that they'll have online, conversations, and that there's protocols for communicating with students and parents that Jen and Tyler talked a little bit about as well. So overall, we've made, in my opinion, vast improvements from where we were in the spring. By no means is this a perfect system. There will be things that we need to tweak moving forward, but I'm pretty confident that we have a high level of consistency of coherence, and that it'll help support students moving forward. And as I said before, this really builds off of all the work that we are already doing prior to this whole COVID-19 piece. So I'm going to exit out of my presentation here, and then that way I can see everyone and I can field questions. Just throwing out there one more time, there's a lot there, and there's a lot more I can share with you. So please don't hesitate to email me if you want all the background, because I'd be more than happy. I see George is waving his hand.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Good. I have 100 questions, but I'll limit it to 2.
Okay.
First question deals with, as I was looking at the Google module or the Google platform.
Yes.
I would assume buried in some of those headings would be the notion of application and practice for students.
What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, if you're teaching somebody how to construct a sentence, I would guess you'd want to have them produce a few sentences.
Yes, indeed. And I would say that's probably going to be the most important piece of things is really, first off, with teachers is having some sort of direct instruction will be important, where they're, introducing a new concept, doing some sort of modeling, but really trying to keep that to a minimum as best we can, and doing what you just said, George, which is making sure students have lots of time to actually do the practice and show some sort of initial demonstration, so they can kind of say, hey, here's my sentence, how does it look? And then they can get that feedback. So a heavy emphasis on that, absolutely, in a variety of forms.
Good, thank you. The next question is dealing with getting to know your students. That was in part of your presentation. Now, as I was listening and thinking about that, I feel there might be a continuum that would start off with asking the student, so how you doing? And would continue all the way up to a history of the family for 4 generations. So
right.
What can you elaborate a little bit on what you're doing there?
Absolutely. So, how it'll actually play out with each teacher will probably vary a little bit given the comfort level of the teacher and etc. But what we're really emphasizing is, making sure that we spend some of the time in our first, a week or two to just not jump right into the content, which I know some teachers will want to do, but allow time for the students to get to know the teacher, and also for the teacher to get to know the students. What do they like to do? What did they do this summer? What things do they like to do? One of the things that I did when I was a teacher, and that I'll definitely be emphasizing to our faculty, is I would do just an interest survey. So, how do you spend your time? They would get a little circle and they would make a pie chart, and they'd fill in based on how much they like to do something. Like, I really like skateboarding, so that's half the pie. And, I read, that's a little piece of the pie, the different things, and just really getting to know the students. Obviously, it'll be a little different in this online environment, but there'll still be options, like when you when you start a session like this with your students and you're just kind of chit-chatting, waiting for everyone, like, hey, did you go 4-wheeling this weekend? Or, oh, hey, did you go fishing? And just having those sorts of conversations will be really critical, even more so now.
Thank you.
BJ, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm actually just wondering how you want to handle the synchronous new learning is actually something that concerns me. I know that was one of the hardest things for my daughters to deal with, and especially time-wise. A couple questions I have in regards to that. How are you avoiding it becoming just a lecture style? Like, I know my daughter has 2 days of pure Zooms, my eighth grade daughter, and I can't imagine sitting there being lectured for 2 days through synchronized learning. So that is a concern. And then also, if new learning all happens synchronously, how are you personalizing and differentiating?
Yep, good questions. So first off, the overwhelming students at all grade levels with the synchronous piece is something that's really important for me. And to be frankly honest, this was happening prior to this as well. I mean, in a lot of high school classrooms, I mean, it's lecture for the whole block or period or whatever. And so we have said explicitly that, at the middle and high school level, 15 to 20 minutes for a chunk is the maximum that we really want anyone to be like just doing direct instruction. And we're emphasizing smaller chunks. And so how we want to make sure that teachers have some autonomy to approach this in the way that they want to. And for instance, math teachers in particular have been very worried because they tend to be a little more, focused on direct instruction going through the process of things. But with videos, for instance, no videos really should be longer than 5 to 7 minutes. Research shows that 6 minutes is actually the ideal length. And so videos should be, it's better to have several smaller chunked out videos than one long video. With the direct instruction piece, we can have multiple chunks of synchronous learning. Maybe you have a 12-minute kind of lecture, if you will, and then break out into smaller groups where maybe students are doing some collaboration in Google Rooms or something like that. But that's something that I'm going to be emphasizing heavily is we need to minimize the amount of teacher talk for a variety of reasons. And this is something that will spill over once we're back into the classroom. That's just good teaching. It's not just sitting there and talking, but making sure that students are doing the work. The second piece, refresh my memory on the second question, sorry.
I was talking about being able to personalize and differentiate.
Yes.
If all new learning is happening synchronously.
Yes. Thank you. So again, trying to make sure that the synchronous piece, we're keeping that to a minimum as best we can, and that when possible for the items that students are going to be engaged with, so be it videos, be it readings, that ideally it's a menu of options. So leveraging what's called universal design for learning practices, which is differentiation is a reactive approach. Universal design for learning is proactive, in that we're making sure we're thinking about the barriers to things ahead of time. And that's why I mentioned the videos is, it's one thing to have directions in there, but that's great if the student can read them. If they can't read them, they do no good. And so we need to have videos that also include directions as well. And so say there was some readings for students to engage in, instead of just saying, here's the reading that you will do, here's 3 readings you can choose, or here's 4 videos that you could choose to watch, pick 2. And so as much as we can to, as you said, BJ, to really personalize it and giving students some voice and choice and some options with regards to how they approach these things is going to be emphasized as well.
Yeah, I got one other question. Again, around the synchronous, how are students expected, or what's the direction if a student can't make a synchronous meeting, but they still need to do the work?
So probably that's going to be specific expectations to be dealt with at the building level. And I think a principal kind of mentioned how that might work out already, but we're going to have those synchronous sessions video or recorded. And so we'll have those for a period of time. So a student could go and watch that synchronous session if they, say, tended to miss it. And that's why having those shorter teacher-created videos will also be important, as opposed to just like a big chunk of time where, you could go back and for instance, myself, I would want to probably watch something maybe once or twice, or maybe after I saw it, did an assignment, maybe I want to go back and watch that video again. And so those live sessions will be recorded.
Does that bring up a privacy issue?
Of recording the teacher?
Of recording the live sessions? Or is it just the teacher? Because I know you can't really record something with a student in their home.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah, I guess we'd have to, no, we're not going to be doing that. And, Brian's the tech whiz with how we can figure all the things out. But yeah, we're not going to be doing anything that goes against that. And so we'll figure out the regulations.
Okay, as long as you're figuring it out.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm done with my questions.
Cool.
So, sorry for the grilling.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Other questions? I have a couple questions, Andrew.
Please.
Just doing the synchronous learning, like if the kids were actually in a classroom, the teacher may be teaching part of that and then maybe working with them or having them do work. Is that going to take place during any of these live sessions? I think that maybe clarification on that would be helpful.
So you're saying the teacher doing something and then the students working, but it's still staying live? Is that what you mean?
Right, like maybe they're working in groups. Like if for instance, if the classroom was live, if the kids were actually physically in the classroom with the teacher, COVID, they maybe teacher may give some instructions, explain some things, and then maybe break people up into smaller groups to say, okay, this group's going to work, that group's going to work. Is that still going to happen live, where kids could say, oh, I don't understand this, could I have a question, or not?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. I mean, that would, again, it'll probably be to the discretion of the teacher with regards to what they're doing. But, thinking about if I were in the classroom, I would definitely be doing something like that, where, again, I would want to minimize how much I was talking. and I would say, like, here's the things. All right, now, you know, breaking out into Google Rooms or working independently, and then students could just, you know, be working, but I would still be available to field questions while they're working on those things. I think it's going to be a mixture. There's going to be a spectrum with regards to what it all looks like, and it'll probably be different at various grade levels and different content areas with how it all kind of shakes out. But I don't think it'll be the teacher talking for 10 minutes and then like gone, and then the students are just kind of left to their own devices. That there is going to be still some direct connection with the teacher, if you will. The main piece emphasizing again is we just don't want teachers lecturing to their students for, you know, just forever, because that's not going to work. Because again, that's just a student just looking at a screen doing nothing.
Right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. And the other question that I had is just if you can clarify, because when you said during the presentation, you're thinking about or working on shrinking curriculum.
Yeah.
I think that if someone happened to see that, they may think that that's in response to the pandemic situation. And I got the feeling that that was something that you were working on a, you know, not just us, but a state and national level prior to that. So maybe if you could just clarify.
You betcha. So there's this concept of a guaranteed and viable curriculum, not my term. It was brought up by Robert Marzano in 2003, I believe. And so the idea of a guaranteed and viable curriculum is that it's every student is going to have access to it and that we have the time to do it. Without really talking endlessly about this, the reality is, and again, this is not a Mill River problem, this is truly a national problem, there's way too much to teach. And this is a huge issue at the middle and high school level where we're just trying to teach all this content, and it's a zero-sum game. We can't just because we say it out loud does not mean that students learn it. And so we really need to move towards this idea of a guaranteed and viable curriculum, really prioritizing what it is that we're going to teach. A tangible example from my own classroom was I started out having, I think it was 42 learning targets initially, and that got whittled down to 17 within a year after I saw what it was I was able to fit in there to have the time to do the remediation and enrichment activities that I was talking about. There's going to be a report coming out from the AOE. So if you've been following the stuff around Act 173 and the 4 levers that they talk about, coordinated curriculum, and I'm gonna not even remember ones, local assessment systems, the different ones. They've had all 3 of their reports have come out except for the coordinated curriculum. So I have had eyes on that, and it mentions the term guaranteed and viable curriculum numerous times. And so this is also something that we've been talking about in the state organization that I lead, the Vermont Curriculum Leaders Association, is having all of us, this entire state, move towards this guaranteed and viable curriculum. So no doubt you'll be seeing that term brought up quite a bit more in this year and upcoming years.
No, thank you. I just didn't want anybody who might have just tuned in to think that we were shrinking our curriculum in response to the pandemic or the remote learning.
It's a good point to make. I see George has another question.
I'm trying to get this mute thing. I think that I saw an indication from, I think it was Jennifer, that wanted to involve herself in this conversation. Was I correct?
Well, I just wanted to back up what Andrew was saying. At the high school level, we have teachers that have been talking about doing that 15-minute of instruction and then staying in there live, but having kids break out into groups and then coming back and doing an exit ticket with them for the last like 5 minutes of that block of time. So I think that's what, I don't know if that helps at all, but that's what they've been talking about kind of doing to break up like staring at a screen for 40 minutes.
Makes sense. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Any other
questions for Andy?
And as I said, again, I'd be more than happy to share. Clearly, you know, I like talking about this stuff. And there's a lot of documents that I can share with you. So please, by all means, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll share everything that I have. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate it. So we'll move on to our committee business. And as Dave kindly reminded me, we have to talk about committee roles and responsibilities, which is something we wanted to put up on the website Thank you, Maria, for bringing us back around to that conversation again, so that anyone who goes to the website and looks at one of our committees knows what they do, basically, and what they're responsible for doing. So, Dave, I think you shared with everybody. Do you want to just let everybody know?
I did, yes. I shared via email just maybe 10 minutes ago the document with you, but I will also share my screen if you'd like me, Tammy, so that folks can
That
see
would be great.
the document on screen. Bear with me momentarily, please.
And what I would suggest is maybe as we go through, I think all the committees are represented. So if each committee could just, chair could possibly just pipe up when we get to you. And I think they're alphabetical, maybe. Yes.
Not quite, maybe.
Okay, they're close to alphabetical.
Sort of, yeah.
So, and I don't know that we need to vote on this, but maybe because we haven't warned it, but maybe if we just want to get a consensus, if we need to work on it or send it back to the committee to work on in each instance, I think that would be a good idea. And I'm certainly willing to listen to what anybody would say on that. So, John, if you can see yours, buildings and grounds is alphabetically first on this list.
So
yeah,
there we go.
We worked on this back, I think it was January, February. We talked about it. We came up with, I think this was the final draft that we wanted to go with. Couldn't find anything where we actually said, yeah, we're going to go with this and presented it to the board or anything. But I know that, or at least I'm pretty sure that we all agreed that this was a good description. I included Gary in this discussion, and I think he was pretty happy with it. We tried to balance the board's role of advisory with fiscal responsibility and things like that in this mission and roles and responsibilities statement. So that's kind of where we ended up with it, as far as I can remember anyway.
So what I think might be a good way to handle this is if any of our board members have input, I guess, into any of these, maybe if they could email board chairs directly with that, and then maybe you can possibly make edits if that has to be, or needs to be, or wants to be, if that sounds like a good plan. I don't know how we want to handle it. What do you think? Anyone?
I see Len's hand waving, Tammy.
Oh, I couldn't see Len. Sorry. Here you go, Len. Thank you.
Just in terms of personnel, I can speak to that we had in fact voted on that in the committee, and in fact had brought it to the board, and the board voted on it as well to approve those roles and responsibilities of the personnel committee. So
okay.
I believe that occurred with personnel and policy. I want to say we did with both those committees.
Correct. And that I see George waving, so I'll let him go. But I just wanted I can speak to personnel that the committee approved it and the full board approved it.
Excellent. So we could probably check off personnel then. And I think, George, policy is the same way, if you recall.
Policy, correct. We had a lengthy discussion in meetings, and I think BJ was part of them, as I recall.
Yep.
And the committee, of course, approved it and passed it on, and the board voted on it as well.
Okay. So we're just moving right along. So community engagement would be next. And Maria, do you want to speak to that? Have you guys finalized anything within the committee?
We read it and approved it by consensus at a meeting, I feel like a couple meetings ago. So.
Okay, so then we could maybe bring it up at the next meeting, Dave, and formally vote on it. Does that sound like a plan? Can we put that as an agenda item?
Certainly, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then finance. So Liz or Andy. There you go.
The finance committee description was, we basically came, ended up here via email. So I think we're ready to vote unless people have feedback at this rate.
Okay. So I would suggest, again, if anyone has any feedback on finance committee description, to get that to Liz before the next meeting, and then we'll warn that one also. Okay. Thank you. Negotiations, Adrian.
Ours is sort of very simple, and we haven't really talked about it. I just sort of wrote it because if the finance committee, if the negotiations committee actually wants to send me something and say whether there's sort of a yay or nay on this, we don't really meet that much amongst ourselves other than just to sort of talk what we're going to propose next, or dates or something like that. So we don't really, this sounds sort of vague, but I think we'll be fine for next meeting. How does that?
Okay, that sounds good. So then if, no, thank you. That works.
It just
and then
seems
this
self-explanatory.
This way, next meeting, we can, formally adopt those responsibility descriptions of the other committees, and then turn it over to Sean and Brian or whomever on the tech side to get it up on the website. That would probably be the best thing. Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, would you like me to hold off on personnel and policy and put them all up together, or do you want to go ahead and put the personnel and policy ones up? Any preference?
All at once. This way we're consistent. I think that would be good.
You bet.
All right, thank you. So we will move then on to our actual committee business. So Len, you're up first, personnel.
Okay. The committee did meet this evening, and I have some requests for board action for some hires. So I'll make a motion to approve a contract for Corey Kendall as a .67 support staff general ed para educator at Shrewsbury Mountain School.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Liz. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving Corey Kendall for a .67 support staff general ed paraeducator at Shrewsbury Mountain School, please give me a thumbs up. That was a mouthful. I'm sorry. I'll try and be shorter next time. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, seeing none, we will unanimously welcome Corey to our community. So, yeah.
Second.
Okay, go ahead.
Number two, I'd make a motion to approve a contract for Fran Marino as a .2 elementary music teacher at Tinmouth.
Is there a second? Thank you, Adrian. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving Fran Marino, please say aye. Thumbs up. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, we welcome Fran to our community.
Number three, approve a contract for Rachel Patch as a .36 elementary teacher in math at Shrewsbury Mountain School.
Second on that, please. Thank you, George. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the contract for Rachel Patch, please say aye. Thumbs up. Anyone opposed? Okay.
If I may.
We welcome. Yes. Go ahead.
If I may, Rachel is a graduate of Mill River, for those that don't know. And I've known her for many years, and I'm sure she'll do a capable job.
Well, thank you, George. And we will welcome Rachel to our community with a little clap. Next, Len.
Next, approve a contract for Stacy Frula as a .6 pre-K teacher at Wallingford Elementary School.
Is there a second? Thank you, Liz. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the contract for Stacy Frula for a .6 pre-K teacher at West, please say aye. Thumbs up. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, we welcome Stacy.
And the next one, and this isn't a mistake, so is to approve a contract for Stacy Frula as a .4 support staff general ed para-educator at Wallingford. I'll
A
make that
second
move.
for that, George. Any discussion? All those in favor, thumbs up. Approving the contract for Stacy. Well, we'll doubly welcome Stacy. Anyone opposed to that? No. Okay, we'll doubly welcome Stacy then to Wallingford Elementary School.
Okay, just a couple of more things and then I'll wrap up. We talked about some openings that were mentioned. One of them was mentioned earlier for a 5th grade teacher at Wallingford and also for a custodian. So those job openings have been posted, I believe you said, right, David?
That is correct.
Yeah. And then lastly, the next personnel committee meeting will be September 2nd at 6. And at that meeting, we will be prepared to discuss the evaluation, the superintendent evaluation. Maria and I worked on that a little bit today, actually a lot today. And so I feel we're in a very good spot to be having that wrapped up. We'll probably get something to you before that meeting so that everybody can take a look at it. So that's around the corner, believe it or not.
Thank you, Len. Thank you. We'll move on to policy. So BJ.
Actually, the only thing I'm going to report is we'll have a meeting, I think September 1st, which is the first Tuesday of the month. And that's on the calendar for guessing 5 o'clock. Yeah, 5 p.m.
Thank you. Negotiations, Adrian.
Sorry, my screen wasn't being very responsive. We just met this week and we're continuing to talk. We have another meeting on the 21st and that's with the teachers.
Okay. Excellent. Buildings and grounds, John.
Nothing really to report other than we have tentatively scheduled a meeting for September 1st at 6 p.m. Not sure if we're going to have anything to discuss then. We'd set that up assuming we were starting school by then, but that isn't going to happen. So we'll quite likely, unless something comes up, not be holding that meeting, but we'll wait until we get closer to determine that.
Okay, thank you. Community engagement, Maria.
Hi, we had a meeting this week and we talked a lot about the website. Sean Ruck joined us and told us about what updates he was working on to help make the website be more accessible and welcoming to people who use it, and to sort of clear out the parts that aren't relevant, or to make them more sort of audience specific so that people know what they are, that they can find what they're coming for. And we're looking forward to seeing how that turns out. And we had some discussion about how in this virtual world we can make board members still visible and available in our communities. And we had, and thinking about how that works. Last year we had a presence at the open houses at back to school, and this year that becomes a lot more complicated because those open houses, if they're happening at all, are spread over several days. And so we're still thinking about that, and I'll be in touch with principals to get your input on how you feel about how that might work, because I don't want to put any undue pressure on any school communities. And that's about where we're at. And we have not set a date for the next meeting, but there will be one, and I'll let you know.
Okay, great. Thank you. And now we move on to finance. Liz.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to cut my video in the hopes of preserving the audio. So this evening we have payroll warrants and pay orders for review as follows. It looks like we have a payroll warrant that was missed from, gosh, June, July, August, 2 meetings ago. So this is a payroll warrant dated June 19th in the amount of $74,100.77. And another payroll warrant also dated June 19th in the amount of $2,105,030.59 for a total of $2,179,131.36. And I'm just toggling between pages. All right, so additional payroll warrants for this evening. I have a payroll warrant dated August 7th in the amount of $922.54. One dated August 14th, 2020 in the amount of $115,794.31. And another payroll warrant dated August 14th, 2020 in the amount of $22,683.21 for a total of $139,400.06. And just bear with me, I'm toggling between screens. Lastly, I have pay orders dated August 19th. From the general fund, I have a pay order in the amount of $4,677.18. For food service, I have a pay order in the amount of $627.79. From the general fund, a pay order in the amount of $85,631.78. From the general fund, a pay order in the amount of $328.96. From the general fund, a pay order in the amount of $1,107.08. And from the general fund, a pay order in the amount of $195.80 for a total of $92,568.59. And I move that we approve the payroll and pay orders as presented. And I'm going to toggle on back to everybody.
For a second, Adrian, thank you for seconding. Is there any discussion? So, Doug, George, anybody?
Yes, I unfortunately didn't take the effort to review the paperwork today. I will do that tomorrow. I'm sure that our finance team did their usual good job, but I will review it tomorrow.
Yeah, and I took a look over it a couple of days ago, went through everything. I've printed off the signatory pages that are there. Dave, do you have any office personnel in there in the next couple of days?
Debbie's in there every day. Ann is coming back tomorrow from vacation, and our business office folks are there. I'll be there tomorrow as well.
Okay, I'll do the signatures tonight or tomorrow morning, and I'll drop them off during the day. It's there. Thank you, though. Everything was fine.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving the pay orders and payroll as read, please thumbs up. Say aye. Anyone opposed? Please say no. Okay. Payroll and pay orders are approved as read. Thank you. Do you have anything else for us, Liz?
Oh, I do. So I have a financial update. That was just the next item. Shall I move on? Okay.
Absolutely.
So, and I am going to cut my video because I do think that preserves audio. So my financial update is that there has not been further federal funding enacted since May. Yesterday, Governor Scott did recommend his fiscal year 21 budget, which addresses a $180 million deficit while not making major cuts to existing programs or services. And this was made possible by a tax revenue surplus from 2019 that was filed in July. Savings from the pandemic, having shut things down, same thing we experienced locally in the district, and increased Medicaid payments from the federal government. The legislature convenes Tuesday, the 25th, to begin work on finalizing the fiscal year 21 budget. And the fiscal year 21 education fund restatement shortfall is currently projected to be $70 million. So that amount has come down as the budget has just been amended. So that's my update.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
I would like to share with the board, and this is not any inside information of it, but it's just caution based on what I've observed and seen. If the governor is speaking about a budget that does not see any tax increases and uses surplus money to balance that out, what we can anticipate on the school side is that schools will take a pounding in that process. So what gets presented as a statewide lack of a tax increase puts all pressure from a funding standpoint on districts, which means there will be extra scrutiny on us in terms of how we develop those budgets, and it could be even more significant. So when Liz talked about that big number that's going down, and that's a good thing, as that number goes down, pressure on local districts goes up. We need to be prepared for that because I expect it may be a gruesome process. So I'm not trying to be doomsdayish, but it will be a gruesome process.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Liz. We will move on to transact other legal business. And since George is with us and it's his favorite part of the program, we will turn to him first.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Believe it or not, I do have some legal business. Oh, I hope it is. Anyways, I want to talk about COVID-19 kind of topic for just a second or two. Except for Skylar, my daughter, everybody in the immediate family is a high risk, and that includes me, my wife, her grandmother, and her mother, and on the other side, grandparents as well. So, having said that, here's what I'm concerned about. These video meetings seem to go well. I am celebrating 2 days of success, yesterday with negotiations in Zoom, and this evening, of course, with our session here. And I was informed by my daughter that one of the problems is that my computer that I'm using is 7 years old. So whatever that means. So anyways, what I want to suggest is this. I think that all of us are pretty responsible people, able to follow safety protocols. And I think that there must be a great number of spaces at Mill River that might be available on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock that we might be able to meet in person, at least for limited times. I think there's a value in that, and I'd like to suggest that. And that's my business.
Okay. Anyone have any comments?
I just have a quick comment. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate that these online meetings are not seemingly as effective. You don't get to see people up close. You don't really get to read their expressions because they're, not even a half-inch square. But I'm not willing to come meet in public in any kind of unless we're meeting outside. If we want to have a big circle out in the parking lot until the snow flies, I'd be in. I'm not going in that building to meet for 2 hours with 10 other people and another 10, 15 people in the audience. I appreciate the suggestion, but we'll have to have a remote component for the rest of us.
Yes. Dave, go ahead. I know you have something to say.
Two
And then I'll
pieces,
get to you.
two pieces to share for the board for context on that. The Agency of Ed has advised that school boards should not be meeting in person. Now, the Agency of Ed doesn't exactly tell a board what to do, but that is the advisement that they have been given. And it's worth noting that state government employees have all been ordered to stay remote until at least January 1st. So that's one piece. Second piece, if this board did decide to meet in person at any one of the schools, the public is not permitted in the schools. So you would actually find yourselves creating a in-person meeting for you, but you'd still have to create the remote access for the public, which would actually significantly complicate the process. I am aware of at least one board locally that has been meeting outside on occasion, and they have significant issues with daylight, with audio, with speakers being able to be heard, and with distance being problematic in terms of overall interaction. So of course the board can decide to do what it wants. Its superintendent would decide whether he attended in person or remotely. And I just want to advise you about what the AOE recommends and what our obligation is on the public side with the health restrictions we have to follow.
Liz, you had something to add.
I just wanted to echo what Adrian was saying, and I'm going to cut my video to preserve audio. So I'm not comfortable meeting in person either, sadly. I am a caretaker of my parents, and if I were to get sick, they would get sick, and then that would kill them. So I also think the optics are poor if we're meeting in person and yet we're not, school is not in session. I do think it continues to be best practice to meet remotely, even though it is not desirable. I do think it's safe. And furthermore, we don't know, and we're not on a need to know basis what everybody's, health situation is. So, there could be people on the board who are immunocompromised who simply aren't comfortable sharing that publicly, and that's okay. It's really not our business. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Anyone else want to share? BJ.
Whether we're in person or whether we're online, I find I'm more comfortable online, but that's me, and I'm not going to knock it. But one thing I would like to point out is, or maybe we should get some data on, is the live YouTube stream better for our community? Because I know a lot more people who are watching it that way than I ever heard of before.
So BJ, just some quick data. Our meeting that we had all the public comment on, a few meetings back, we had 50 some folks like live in this meeting, and there were about 160 consistently online during that point in time. Mm-hmm. Tonight's meeting, Brian tells me we've had a pretty consistent mid-20s viewing. If you compare that to our normal board meeting attendance from the public, that is what it is. I'm not sure what PEG TV's normal attendance would be, but you can't attend something you're watching on TV, right? I'm not sure what the viewership looks like on the PEG TV side.
Yeah, so I might say technically moving forward, we might as a board want to consider the YouTube Live as a more permanent solution. Okay, food for thought.
Thank you. If I could weigh in, I'll let Doug. Okay, Doug, go ahead. You can speak.
As you can see in front of me was a bunch of writing I did the last couple of days. I had fully intended to ask the board to approve a committee to restudy the Black Lives Matter flag situation. Still feeling it's the wrong thing to do for the wrong reasons. There are ways that we can deal with our not students that are being helped along. I decided that one thing that would do, although it might make me feel better, would probably put enough embarrassment to the rest of the board members. I don't want to do that. What I would ask that during the course of the fall here, maybe into first part of November, that we take a hard look as to what that has done, if anything, to help us along. We're still, what we have accomplished by doing that here is to make a very deep divide in the middle of the middle of our voting blocks. We're probably, if not half and half, pretty close to that. Individual that we all know was, I won't say attacked, but had a confrontation with somebody because of what has happened. And I just don't like the idea of that. But in my instance, I was, I still think we need to look at it before it gets to the point. Right now, if I recommended that and it went through, I would also have the second one would have been to postpone the raising of the flag until we came to some sort of a decision. And that probably will mess up what's being going on now with the flag raising committee. But just say that I'm not forgetting about the situation. I still think it's wrong. I think probably for anybody who wants to sort of think about what's going to happen during that time, probably the first or second week of November, this situation that I feel bad about what's going on with the Black Lives Matter Association is probably going to go away. So thank you.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. I just wanted to, I was going to speak to the issue of the in-person versus virtual meetings. So I just wanted to say that I know that, you know, Dave and I have gone back and forth a few times with this in talking about it. And the issue with, I personally would not participate in any in-person meeting for my own personal reasons that I choose not to share, as Liz very nicely said. And so your chair would be remote. That's all I can say. I do know that we wouldn't be able to have the public there because the AOE direction is very specific on that. So those are just my two things, my considerations. I think that as long as school is remote, we can definitely revisit it when school resumes in person, as we should. But that's just my 2 cents again. So, great. Anyone else have anything to share? Okay. Agenda building. I know we have some committee roles and responsibilities we have to vote on. We're going to have another school reopening update, I assume.
Yeah, and I'd assume another equity update. Would you like that as well?
Yes, please. Will we have, I don't know, will we have some central office updates and principal reports maybe as we're closer to school? Would that be helpful? Len, I'm sorry.
No,
Did you
that's
have something to add?
One of the things when Maria and I were working on the evaluation piece, one of the things that I think we need to re-examine is our 5-year goals as a board. Just because, you know, some of the goals, obviously, we did not complete because of the COVID virus. And so, you know, when testing didn't take place, and, you know, again, I'm not faulting anybody. I'm just saying that was the reality of the situation. And so when we look at the 5-year plan and we look at David's evaluation, which is sort of built on the 5-year plan, not completely, not exactly, but that's a part of it. You know, it's kind of hard to hold someone accountable for situations that have occurred over which we had no control. So I just think at some point we should look at those goals and talk about them.
Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, Len, perfect timing. One thing I love is like tearing one sheet of paper that I had a list on because everything on that's done and throwing that away and starting a new list. And new list I started today, the top thing on the list was to reframe our 5-year goals based on the COVID context. So if it's okay with the board, I'd appreciate, give me a little bit of time to do that work. I'm not sure if I'll have that ready for the next board meeting, but at least the one after that to bring to the actual board for you to react to and tweak whatever we want to do. But that's on my list to get started. So great timing.
Okay. Anything else that we need to address for agenda items at the next meeting? I think that's a pretty full agenda. Sure, we'll have a lot to talk about. So we don't need an executive session. Am I correct, Dave? We're good?
Correct. That is correct.
So then adjourn by consensus, ladies and gentlemen, for the evening. Okay. Thank you all so much. It's been a very long evening, but thank you for staying and bearing with us Take care. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.